Hello all, this is Gamer1745 here, and I wanted to share a few of my thoughts and comments on Hearts of Iron 4 here. Been playing a bunch of Together for Victory here, and that's midpoint in this game. Now, based on somebody else's comment, made me sort of think and want to bring this up again. I think both production lines of equipment as well as productions of what do we call these? Factories, infrastructure, buildings, guest buildings. I think should be generally capped at 5 instead of 15. I know it would mean a longer list of different things in production at any one time, but having some of these particular, some of the stuff like radar and airfields, I think should be built pretty quickly, and I think maybe take a little too long to build. But things like the factories, it should take quite a while to build, and if they, even though you can spread them out, have instead of 5 in production, have 15 in production in different provinces. If it takes longer to produce them, the first 5 aren't added to the, the compound interest of them as you go won't spiral them up as quickly, and so it will be, their production will be spread out. They won't be as quickly used to build more of them, spiraling up military production as quickly. But you can still have a lot of them built. I think it would be better for play balance, plus things like to have multiple different buildings in production and repairing, such as all of the repairs for infrastructure damage and other damage elements that would spread that out a bit more and would be better. And along with that, probably a bit of a rebalancing of how much it takes time-wise to build these things would be good. On the equipment side, again, I think about 5 would be right. Now, I very early on, particularly with the building thing, when the first development diaries were put out, it just felt wrong. It felt that there was too much concentrated at any one point, at any one time. So it just, but I didn't put much of an effort into it because I wanted to play and just see how it playing out. And I'm really sort of feeling that the way this is going is just I mean, for the fast production of quick play multiplayer games, this is maybe best, and this is sort of my worry, is that that's sort of the focus of the builders, but I don't know that that's the focus of the players of the game. I think the idea that the game not necessarily bogged down in too many details, but the game shouldn't need to be over fast or fast play. Let the game take months to play, take a long time to play out. That's fine. Play at the speed that you want to play it at. And so having more production lines would mean a little more management, take a little bit longer. But for something like, particularly like tanks, Germany had multiple tank factories producing, with multiple production lines. And that was part of the reason when they were sometimes expanding their production. Excuse me, they expanded it into new types and kept the old efficient production lines that were still producing useful, and which I do love, is the variant process to make upgraded versions to already efficiently produced tanks that were still useful. But even when you were talking, say, Panzer III production, they had it in multiple factories and not just in one factory, so that when they did want to stop some production and switch it to something else, it didn't mean stopping entirely all production of Panzer IIIs or cutting down the number. it's more of the reason, and would feel better as a player who, you know, likes immersion, that you have more and different production lines of equipment. Similarly on this, if you notice here, and this is way down here because I went back and re-added basic infantry equipment level 1 here, mainly to do lend-lease to various miners in different places. I'm sending a lot of lend-lease to Turkey, who's not part of the Axis, but is currently fighting off a Soviet invasion. So I want a cheaper equipment produced that would still be useful to some other nations that I could give out. And if you notice, 2 production lines fully worked out here, which is sort of ahistorical. This is producing 285 there, and this is producing 124. Well, the early German equipment that was the Mauser K98K rifle and the MG 34 and the MP38 machine pistol was harder to produce, took more production time and resources to produce the later Sturmgewehr MP40, which is basically the same submachine gun, just simplified for production, and the MG42. The only thing that might justify this was higher ammunition usage, but I don't think it justifies double the amount of resources and roughly half the production equipment time. So that should make things, it should be cheaper to produce the newer than to produce the older once it's fully worked up. Sort of little ahistorical element there, but that's a minor thing. And also for productions of shipping, to be able to slam any one of these over and reduce down to rush through heavy cruisers, the U.S. definitely had probably the fastest ship production capabilities in the world at the time, and which something like that, whether generally allowed for through various production techniques or specifically allowed for a single nation like the U.S., should be handled that way. It should not be handled as the ability to shift production and rush out a heavy cruiser that much faster just because you're shifting around, or shift to a battleship to rush it out of production that much quicker. So I think 5 roughly should be the production limit there as well, so that you can have 3 production lines of submarines that over time would, because this is unlike the spiraling up, the compound interest, if you will, of civil factories building more civil factories, this would in essence in the same amount of time build just as many submarines, but it would take longer per laying them down. So for something like submarines, you could still get a lot produced out there, but for battleships, again, over time you would have the same amount of battleships out there, but it's a lot longer planning ahead for them. So I think that would be better. So I think generally speaking, both should be cut to down to 5 max for any of these things, and just have more and more production lines. And you could even have convenient buttons added here, add production line, to sort of do this without having to come up here and click and do the whole thing. So if you want to make it ease of use, I'm not arguing against that. I just think these are just a little too blunt force. Now, other little nitpick is it's 1946 May. It was early 1940 that I declared war on Poland. Poland still has a destroyer sitting out here. It's still in battle. At times I've had the whole Kriegsmarine out here. I've had huge numbers of air power, and I still have quite a bit of naval air power out here flying over the Baltic. Can't sink that ship. Also a little bit of the Norwegian Navy sitting out here. A little bit of the Danish Navy still sitting here. And don't know if I'm just not seeing it or if it moved. There was a a British heavy cruiser sitting out here at 9%, and I had Craig's Marine Flotilla, a bunch of naval airs you can see here, out there trying to kill it, and it, at least last I knew, hadn't killed it. I'm just not seeing it on the map now, and I mean there for years, sitting there. That's another little problem that should be taken care of. Okay, well, thanks for watching this short video. It's just my thoughts. I'd love to hear your feedback on if you think production lines should be smaller than they currently are, or maybe you think they should be larger. I don't know. Part of it's the player's ease of use. Part of it, for me, is the sort of historical perspective on production. Thanks so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.